Hello, welcome to this kind of a little tip video for building your Black Seas ships. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have some of your own tips, techniques, and please go ahead and share them down below. So let's make, expand the knowledge of the community in general. But I found there are a few things you can do to enhance the look of your ships without a whole lot of extra work. And I thought I'd drop them in this video and see if you guys can benefit from it. So again, share, like, subscribe, and let's take a look at the tips. Alright, the very first tip that I can give you guys is assemble your model as the directions go, except leave the anchors and the longboats out. Okay, leave them off. You can glue them together the way you're going to put them on, but don't actually adhere them to the ship. It's going to make it a lot easier to paint without those details in the way. Okay, and super glue will stick just fine with no problems at all. Alright, the second tip. This one's actually part of the building process, though. I ran into some difficulty with the boom and the gaff sail and everything, because I thought I understood from the pictures where the gaff booms, the two booms that come off the back of the ship, were supposed to be to hold the gaff sail. I was completely wrong. So what I realized way too late, because again I built all my ships before I figured this out, is that what you should do is affix the top boom at a slight angle. And by the way, that one is the shorter of the two booms, not the longer. Okay, that was a mistake I made. You're going to affix that. Let me bring this up. You want to place that right below the yard arm on the block that's actually made for it, and angle that up. Before the glue sets, use the actual gaff sail to figure out what angle that should be at. Hold it parallel so that it's parallel with the mainmast or the mizzenmast, and then set this at the angle that's going to match the sail. Once this is completely dry, then use that same sail and figure out how far down this should go. If you put this down too far, the sail won't fit. I mean, it will be able to pass right through between the two. If it's not far enough, then, or if it's not close enough, sorry, there's going to be no bowing in the sail at all. It's just going to be one straight sheet, which you don't want. So you're going to want to put this up just a little bit ahead of where the sail actually sits, so that you can have some bowing of the sail, make it look like it's filled with wind. That's a big improvement. It should make your life a lot easier when it comes to actually doing the building the gaff, the mizzenmast and the gaff sail. I also like to actually place the angle of the gaffs off to the side just slightly, but that requires some additional cutting and things. Don't worry about it if you don't want to do that. That's not one of my tips. That's just something that you'll note. If you notice on my ships, they're a little off center. It's because that's the way I chose to do it. All right. The next tip. This is actually probably the one thing that I learned again after the fact, and I don't know why it didn't dawn on me. The first thing you should do, is try to prime the hull. Oh, by the way, don't put the sails in when you're building. You can put the bowsprit in, but don't glue the main mast and the masts on until you finish painting those. It's a lot easier to hold those while you're painting them if you paint them separately and add them in later before you do the rigging. But anyway, prime the entire model the color of the bridges. Okay, the bridges are the stripes where the decks, the gun decks are, the batteries are. Most are some sort of yellow, maybe red, but not often. Prime the whole ship that way, because it's going to be easier for you to paint the black over that color than it will be to paint the yellow or something even the red over the black. Here is what it looks like when you paint black and then you try to go over with yellow. It's pretty blotchy. Ignore the irregularities of the borders, because I'm going to go back and touch up those with the black. But notice how uneven the coat of the yellow is. It just takes so long to get that right. If I were to prime this thing just in the yellow straight off, it would be nothing. I just go through with the black and I'm done. And then painting the cannons, very simply, just go, hold it, just touch the cannons each way down. So that's just a tip there. Now the next tip, this has to do with, again, this is no particular order, actually doing the rigging. I haven't found a problem with the third rate, the way the rigging is set up. However, with the first rates, frigates and brigs, the backstays, which are the lines that run from the mast backward to, on the third rates of frigates and brigs, there's a little hole in the side where you can actually run the line. It turns out that on the frigates and brigs, that line interferes with the placement of the rat lines, so you're going to want to move that. And on the the first rates, there is no hole. You have to drill your own hole. So let's take a quick look at this model. This is a Blood and Plunder model, and it has, besides being bigger, it's easy to show kind of where these things are supposed to be. You'll notice right here. Let's do this. This is where the main mast, or the foremast is, and this block here is where the rat lines are going to go to. You'll notice there are four. Hopefully, you can see the 4 holes, because there's 4 lines in this model that go there. This is where the rat lines actually on your Black Seas model are going to fit as well. Well, it turns out that on the Black Seas models, they're correctly scaled. They actually go further back than just where the rat lines would sit. That's because that strip of wood there, that's where the backstays are going to anchor. They're not going to anchor to the side of the hull at the railing. They're going to go down. So on the first rate, you'll have to take a small drill bit. I think I used a number 76 or 78. 76 is 0.020 inches, and 78 is 0.016. I'm pretty sure it was 78. And you drill at the very back end of those boards. I honestly forget what they're called. I'll put it down below. Drill in at the very end, just one hole in each of those on each side, and then you can run your backstays through it, just like as if there was a hole drilled in the side of the ship. Now, on the first rates, those are pretty big, so they're easy to get the drill bit toward. On the frigates, third rates, and frigates and brigs especially, they're not big enough. They're just too tedious. So instead, take a larger drill bit, say 67, which I happen to like. It seems to cover a lot of applications, and actually drill into the side of the hull a little further back. Matter of fact, let me show you an example. All right, now in this case, my friend has not done anything to to this, as far as the rat lines go. But you'll notice here on the back of the brig, you see the backstay comes all the way back here. Plenty of room for the rat lines to go here. However, on the mainsail, or mainmast, the rat lines are right here, halfway up. So the rat lines are going to interfere with that. So instead, you can actually drill a hole in the side. I like to drill it actually, you'll see on my ship. There, I drilled it a couple cannons back, right there, and then ran it through. That's my point. And I pretty much left the back one as is. So that way, when I put the backstays in, they didn't get in the way of my rat lines. Okay, same thing with frigate. You'll do the same thing. Find a point a little bit further back than those, and drill your little hole, and then you just run the thread through that and up through the top. That will make it a lot easier to mount those rat lines. Now, the next thing, very simple modification you're going to have to do if you put the rat lines on, which I recommend because it does look good, is for most of the ships, the actual rat lines themselves, the acetate, is going to make contact with the row of cannon barrels right above that board, okay? So you're going to actually have to take an X-Acto knife and slice those cannons off at an angle and just touch up the tips with black so they're kind of hidden, and before you glue that on. It makes it a lot more secure because there's a lot more points of contact then along that entire board and then up the top of the rat lines. So that's a good next step, basically next tip. The final one is actually on painting. You want to make your ships look good, and you don't want to have to put a lot of effort in it. Some of us are not good at painting stuff like this. It takes me a lot of time to paint any of these things halfway decent. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of little details that make your ship stand out a little bit more than just out of the box kind of. Okay. Alright, first let's talk about the third rate and frigate. They both have this very small set of nets, it's canvas, right there in the main, and the gap between the two segments here. Let me try to get this right here. See this? That is canvas netting. You can, if you look on from the other direction, from the other side of the ship, it looks just like it's plain. It looks like the inside of the ship, but it's not. This is supposed to be a canvas boarding nets kind of thing. So you'll want to paint that a canvas color. That'll make it stand out a little bit from some other models that might be out there. Very simple, detailed paint, and you're good to go. When it comes to the in the rear, I've chosen to mount the flag on a pin, and then that actually goes into the ship, because when I strike the colors, I want to be able to actually take the actual flag out. So the ship will be there without the flag, strike colors. Okay. However, most people are going to be putting them on the gaff line, right? Okay. So I recommend strongly that instead of placing the flag on the actual mast up here, you do it just like you would on the gaff lines. Actually put a small piece of thread, tie it to the bottom of right above the yardarm, run it up to above, somewhere up here, and then actually run your flag through that and glue it together around that thread. It's a little bit more, I'll call it flimsy. It flops around a lot more, but it actually looks a lot better. On these small flags and pennants like this, some of the details actually get lost, because if you wrap them around the mast itself, the insignia is kind of bowed around that, and you lose a little bit of the look. So just a suggestion to make your ship look that much better. Okay, now the last tip, again, really the third rate, paint the deck any color, light color you think looks good. I think mine are a little bit too dark. I'm probably going to go a little bit lighter. But instead of using red on the inside of the ship's hull, the gunnels and all that, use kind of almost a brick color, a dark brick color. That's more the color, closer to the color that it would have been. But in addition to just the inside gunnels, also do some of these other points. So for example, this railing in the back here that separates the poop deck from the main deck. There's some, on the first rates, there's actually some other details on the deck. Paint those in those colors. It's very simple. As long as you're going around painting the inside of gunnels, hit some of these spots, and it makes you look like there's some additional details on the ship that you may not otherwise be able to see. Okay? So, now, one recommendation I'm going to make is, this is entirely an optional thing, but it can add some variety to the way your ships look. It depends on the navy you're modeling, but instead of painting all the masts the same color all the way up, you should consider maybe only the lower portion of each mast, the ones that have the small iron bands holding them together. Keep those the yellow color, or whatever the main color that you're painting them, and then all the sections above that, paint those maybe more of a lighter wood color, because often they were just left unvarnished. Oh, sorry, not unvarnished, unpainted, but varnished. again, this is just one of the things you can do, especially if you're doing privateers or doing pirates. It'd be great to just vary it up a little bit instead of always the same. I happen to do the Spanish Navy, so there's a lot of variety there because of the condition of their ships, and some of the regulations weren't as specific about some aspects. But it's just a way to make your ship stand out a little bit from each other instead of all looking the same. It might even help you to identify them a little differently on the tabletop instead of just relying on those little flags, the signal flags. So those are some tips I've got as I've been working through these ships. Some things I found that would help. Please feel free to comment below, add some more. If I find others, I'll probably go ahead and I'll probably put another video like this out. Alright, so thanks a lot. Hope you enjoyed this. Share, like, subscribe, and especially if you know people who are in Black Seas or any of the sailing games actually, where you actually have to paint your ships, please go ahead and forward this to them, let them know about it. Alright, thanks a lot guys. See you in the next video. Bye.